Hi everybody, welcome back to episode 3. I hope you liked the last couple. I hope you've been following along. If you haven't, please, I'm going to try and put the link up here if I can figure out how to do it. Go and have a look. They're worth, I think they're worth looking at, and they're worth familiarising yourself with the story, just because it perhaps wouldn't make sense. I mean, you're more than welcome to do what you like, but I just think it would make a bit more sense if you had the context of when we met, how we met, and where this is leading to. So I'm going to carry on. Mariana had pretty much just moved into the room, I think is where I left it. We knew exactly how we felt. We were inseparable. And I suppose we'd already talked early on about about how we saw our lives as adults and what we dreamed of as men and women, individuals, and both of us were very, very keen to start a family. Eventually, I mean, we wanted to do the right things and the right way of doing things, if there is such a thing, but we both had an opinion on that. And it involved, first off, Mariana's father was very traditional, so I knew, as soon as I knew how traditional he was, I knew that I needed to, first of all, ask his permission for her hand in marriage. I knew that's what I wanted. I knew that's what Mariana wanted. We talked about having children, about being married and growing old and seeing each other get grey together, and still being as inseparable and as passionate as we were when we first met. So I started making a plan. Murray was very ethical, so she didn't like the idea of flashy, materialistic things. She was not only ethical, but she really fundamentally cared about nature. So she didn't like, the idea of how diamonds have mined, and the fact that there seems to be such a disproportion with regards to who actually makes the money out of them. Not mentioning the De Beer family or industry. Anyway, she was essentially against diamonds. She didn't like the idea of wearing one. Certainly not on such a sort of, what's the word? Prized location, I guess is the way, as her engagement ring finger or wedding ring finger. Anyway, so I'd been working at the hotels, and there was this pop-up in, I think it was the Sanderson. They had a really, really cool jeweler, and it was solid silver. I'll show you in a second, I've still got them. It was a solid silver ring that was carved out of a solid piece to look like a diamond stud. It was so cool, and I think Mariana had seen it, and we'd been walking around there together a couple of times just to sort of see what was what, and she ended up buying a couple of things from there as well. And she sort of was, really, really eyeing it up, and I think as soon as I saw it, I kind of knew, okay, this could be the answer to everything I've been looking for, because I knew how against she was, how against diamonds she was, and how against the idea of spending a fortune on an engagement ring, which also I was quite against. So I ended up getting it. I ended up having it for about 3 months while I made plans. And I did make plans. I'm a bit of a romantic, I'm not hopelessly romantic, but I like the idea of making a plan and committing to a romantic gesture. So I did. And I made a plan where we went out for a wonderful meal, and I think we stayed in the hotel that night. I might have got us a cheap room in the hotel. Anyway, we went out for a lovely meal, and she didn't know any of what was happening, but I convinced her that I wanted us to walk down to the embankment. And incidentally, this was all arranged on the day of the anniversary of our first kiss. So I got the dates wrong, by the way. It was 2011 that we met, and we became engaged a year later, and then we were married in 2015. Anyway, so I took her down to the embankment on the anniversary of our first kiss, August the 5th/6th, depending on what time of day you want. And we talked for a long time, and she was so happy to be there. And now I'd gone to the lengths of, you know, romantic gesture. I wanted to basically, I wanted to do the whole get down on one knee thing, which I did, but I also wanted to make it, I wanted to commemorate it, and I got us a padlock, because I knew she was going to say yes. I knew what that meant to us, to me, to her, but also I wanted to kind of signify the location. So I got a padlock, and I got it engraved with C and M, our initials. And then when we'd kind of celebrated together, I locked it. I climbed down. I fell in the flipping Thames, by the way. I slipped on the stairs, but I locked it to the last rung of the railings. There's one railing just where Cleopatra's Needle is. If you're facing the River Thames, it's the left side of the steps, the right-hand side railing, and there's the last rung on the padlock, on the handrail. There should still be my padlock. I left it there all these years, and I'd been back to chucking it a few years back, and it was still there. So we were ecstatic. I mean, we were so in love. We were so happy with the choices we were making, with the way our lives were going. I was really doing well at work. I was progressing a lot. I was now running 2 of the concierge teams, and we were about to go and launch a new hotel, which I'd been asked to run the concierge team for, which was incredible. And equally, Mariana was studying naturopathic nutrition, so she was at the CNM, it's called, the college in, actually just near Sanderson, around the back of Oxford Street, and she was loving it. And actually she'd had me as part of her clinic trials. They have to do a certain amount of hours in clinic before they can qualify. And she did qualify, although sadly, just before she passed away. Anyway, we went on to, oh, these were the rings, by the way. I still keep them very close to me. I'll see if I can zoom in and show you, but I still wear them. These are her diamond-like ring, all one piece, and then just our silvers, just silver rings for us both, and we had our initials put in them each, but I haven't taken this off for nearly 9 years, and I don't intend to. It took me a long time to stop wearing my wedding ring, probably about 4 years, but I still keep them close. Anyway, I decided that I really needed to ask her dad's permission, and because I proposed sort of beginning of August, we both wanted to do something at least with good weather. So we decided to fly to Brazil in February, and then we agreed that I'd take them all out for dinner. We went to a big meal with her sister and her sister's husband, Ale, sister Mafalda. And yeah, we had a wonderful meal. I mean, I'll see if I can put up some pictures and maybe link some of those memories just so you guys can see. I'll probably do it at the end of this video. And eventually after the meal, it came to the moment in question when I asked him for his permission, and yeah, it was very emotional for both of us, and he wept and I wept, and he said yes. He loved me. I know he loved me, and I know he loved the idea of Mariana being with somebody that felt so passionately about her and was determined to make a life for us both, and that's certainly what I'd intended. And we took a couple of trips. We went to the coast, so we went to a place called Bahia. It's the sort of state of Bahia in the coast of Brazil, and we went to a place called Trancoso, which is like paradise. Again, I've got some lovely pictures there of her celebrating nature and hugging the ocean and hugging the world, as she always used to do. And then we started getting ready for the wedding. We made a plan initially to do it in 2014, and we had to push it back. It wasn't feasible with lots of her family members coming or having to come from Brazil and Portugal and actually further away from Angola. And so we pushed it to 2015, but in all that time we were working hard, we were saving. Mariana was doing really well. She was working in the spa. She'd moved from the events team, got into the spa at Sanderson, which was called Aqua Spa, and then she got really, really well recognised for her hard work and promoted eventually. And we started planning away, and as we got closer, I started getting some bad experiences with my health. I'd always had bad skin, I'd always had psoriasis, and sort of been battling away, starting to get joint pain as well with it, which worried me and worried Mariana more. Anyway, we did a load of tests. Mostly, as we approached the wedding, it was because I looked awful. My skin used to get, and sometimes you can still see it, I used to get like little blotches. Well, I got, my entire face was really, really covered with psoriasis. And on some days when it flared up, it would be quite shocking. And it's tough because it's an immune deficiency. I don't know if anybody know, but psoriasis comes from your skin cells basically in your immune system attacking your body, thinking that it's defending it, whereas it actually ends up building and building layers and layers of surplus skin. And so I started to get some tests done, mostly because my vanity got the better of me and I didn't want to look horrible in my wedding pictures. And I didn't want, I wanted to make sure I wasn't the main focus of attention, that more Mariana was. I mean, she looked incredible on our wedding day. Her cousin made her dress for her, and yeah, she looked phenomenal. Anyway, so we went and we got my tests done, and sadly, I was diagnosed in 2014 with something called ankylosing spondylitis, AS for short. And I didn't really know back in at that time what exactly it meant. I knew that it was related to my joints, and it was related to the inflammatory condition that I had, and that it was genetic. And I remember them telling me that there was no cure, and it would be chronic. It would only get worse, and it would affect my joints and my skin. Now at that time, my joints were only really bothering me a little bit. It was mostly my hip and my lower back, from occasion to occasion. But when it really hit me hard. But it was the skin that was the major issue from my perspective. So they prescribed me, first of all, like a load of steroids, which didn't work. And eventually we got down to this really, really like final outcome drug. The only one that they would say would be the last case scenario. But if you do take it, you're going to have to take it for the rest of your life. You can't stop taking it. It's extremely dangerous once you stop taking it. If you've taken it for a considerable period of time, you'd have to, they advise you don't come off it. It's called Biologics, Humira, Adminulab. Those are 3 names it goes by. And effectively, this is 100% effective immune suppressant. It shuts down your immune system. And they've discovered this side effect, that it had a positive effect on people with psoriasis when they were using this drug for organ transplants, so kidney transplants, liver transplants. And effectively it shuts down the immune system, 100% proof, so that the immune system then won't attack the new organ and arguably destroy it and try and get rid of it. But the risk with that is obviously that then you are living without an immune system for the rest of your life. So if you get the flu, if you get a common cold, you're at risk of death. High risk, much more than, they said to me figures like 90% risk of death from the flu. And obviously we all know what happened with COVID, and yeah. Anyway, so I took it for a couple of weeks, and it did massively affect my skin. My skin cleared up great, but in those 2 weeks I passed out twice at work. I was found unconscious twice in the changing rooms at work, rushed to hospital on both occasions. And on the second occasion, the emergency attending emergency doctor, I can't remember whether she was in charge, but one of the doctors that I saw on the second occasion suggested, listen, you've only been on this 2 weeks. This is what's doing it. This is what's causing you all this imbalance, all this loss of consciousness, and it's only going to get worse. So she said, and she advised, stop, which I did. And Mariana, to be fair, was adamant that I shouldn't be taking this. The only reason I was so adamant that I wanted to try it was because of the effect it would have on my skin. And so I stopped and never looked back. And the reason I'm telling you that now is because it is prevalent to my story, unfortunately, where I'm at now. But I'll move away from that. And we'll come back to it. We'll put a pin in it and we'll come back to it. So our wedding, this is now June 2015. We got married on the 4th of June 2015. We were married at Clissold Park in Clissold House, which is a really beautiful sort of Georgian looking building in Clissold House in Stoke Newington, North London, not far from where we lived. And the park's beautiful, and it was the perfect size, it was the perfect price. We managed to get a beautiful room organised with our family, with the flowers. I had my wonderful florist Jane Wadham and her husband. They're magnificent people. Jane, if you're watching, I love you, and I'm still grateful for everything you did. I hope the family's well. And they set up an incredible venue for us. It was so beautiful, and we'd made all these little ideas that we'd have with the table layout, and it was mad how deep you can go when you're organising a wedding. Those of you who don't know, be careful. It was so nice, and when I think back to the day, and I'll see if I can try and put a couple of pictures up after this video. I'll let you guys have a little insight into how wonderful it was and how beautiful Mariana looked and how happy we all were. And actually that has a bit of relevance, because I decided to go back after Mariana's passing and signify the importance of Clissold Park and Clissold House to me and to the family. So there's now a remembrance tree for Mariana in Clissold Park, very close to where we were married, and I actually sprinkled some of her ashes in the little woodland area. We went to Ibiza. We went to Ibiza with her sister and her brother-in-law. We didn't know that we were going to go there, but after the wedding night, we had the wedding night at the Sanderson Hotel, which was amazing, and they looked after us so much. And people were really, really generous, so we had some money to spend afterwards, and we decided that we were going to go on a honeymoon. And we knew that Mafalda and Ale and the kids were going to Ibiza, and Ale had a very, very good friend of his who had a business there as a concierge, a VIP concierge, so he hooked us up. And we had an amazing time, 2 weeks of bliss, not like, party, rave Ibiza, but more like romantic, quiet, peaceful, exploring, areas like Formentera and Las Dalias, which is like a really famous sort of hippie market, which Mariana loved. I loved it, to be fair. I found loads of skulls. I have a skull obsession. Not real skulls, but, like models and tattooed skulls and pictures of skulls and stuff. So, it was great for both of us. And the food was amazing, the weather, the beauty, and there was something magical about that place. I don't know if you've been, or if any of you have been, tell me how you feel about it, but I felt like it was magic. It had a real sort of mystery to it. And again, I learned on that trip that it's one of the 2 most magnetized places on this planet. So maybe that's behind the mystery. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it. When we came back to London, we had one of Mariana's very close friends tell us about an apartment that she had seen had come up available, and she'd been looking at it. And I mean, this was while we were still in Ibiza. We heard about this. So when we landed, I think on the day after, I phoned the landlord and we arranged a viewing, and it was this weird little apartment, upper floor apartment in Hackney, sort of London Fields. It was off of Mare Street, and it was a terrible building. It was awful. Like, the energy when we walked up there was horrid, and like every other flat or room in this building was let out and rented out in a sort of single bed capacity with multiple beds in a room. So like there was in some of the rooms there were 4 or 5 or 6 people in a room just renting the bed, and then we walk all through that and we get upstairs to our rooftop studio with a rooftop terrace, and it was gorgeous. It was so nice. It had this old little iron circular staircase leading up to our studio floor, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it. We spent a fortune on furnishing it and did all the IKEA trips, and I built all the stuff, and Mariana wanted to get some finishing touches, which we did, and then we started talking about, you know, what we wanted to do next and what we thought was the natural next step. And I was desperate to make a family, to start a family. Mariana was also desperate, but not as I don't think she had the urgency that I had. I was a little bit older than her, only a few years. But I decided to talk to her about us having a sort of trial run, which we agreed on. We ended up getting a little doggy. He was a miniature pinscher. Now I'm getting emotional again. Fuck. His name was Zeus. We called him Zeus because Mariana's accent. He passed at Christmas, just gone. He had a tough life. He wasn't well, but he's with his mummy now. I know that. And I believe that. I've felt them. I told him his entire life after Mariana left, that one day he'd be with her again. We always said to each other that we'd meet again in the stars. I believe that. I have to believe that. Anyway, when we got Zills, Muddy was so happy. We both were. It was like the test of, you know, how we'd cope with. I said trial run because it was like a trial run of how we'd cope with having a baby. And I know they're not the same, but he was the closest I ever got to being a dad. And I'm so grateful for that, for them both. I think I'll stop there. This is hard because we're getting close to Mariana's details of exactly what happened to her. That is going to come up in the next episode. I'll probably have to do it over 1 or 2 episodes, but yeah, 4 and 5, I did plan to cover her death. And then there's lots more to cover in my aftermath. So thank you for watching, and please like and comment. And if you've got anything that you feel like sharing in regards to your own stories, I'd love to hear it. I've put my contact details on the website. There's also my link tree. I'll be starting a Substack soon, so if you're really interested in, or if there's any interest from any of you in diving a bit further into what I've gone through and how I feel, then please come and join. I should be starting the Substack, launching in a day or 2. So hopefully by the end of this week, there'll be content up there. And everything is under the same tag. It's all under Zeushians. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for your time. And I will see you soon. All right, bye-bye.